How many times have you decided that this time would be different? You set the alarm earlier than ever. You plan the workouts, the diet, the meditation, the reading. You tell yourself, 30 days. I'll change everything. I'll become disciplined. I'll become unstoppable. And for a moment, it feels real. Day 1 feels powerful. Day 2 feels uncomfortable. Day 3 feels negotiable. And before you know it, you're back where you started, angry, confused, disappointed, wondering why discipline seems to work for everyone else, but not for you. Here's the truth most people never hear. You don't fail because you lack motivation. You don't fail because you lack willpower. You fail because you're trying to build discipline the wrong way. 400 years ago, a young samurai made the exact same mistake and nearly lost everything because of it. This is his story, and if you've ever broken promises to yourself, it's also yours. Before we continue, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below with one habit you've tried and failed to build, not to judge yourself, but to face it honestly. Now, the story. Chapter 1. The Catastrophe, Northern Japan, Spring of 1592. Saburo knelt in the dirt, face pressed into the ground, blood dripping slowly from his nose onto the earth below. He was 23 years old, strong, fast, well-fed, and well-trained. On paper, he should have been one of the dojo's best students. Instead, he had just been humiliated. The sparring match lasted 12 seconds. His opponent was younger, smaller, less experienced. Yet, within moments, Saburo's wooden sword had been knocked from his hands, and a sharp strike across the face ended the match. The dojo was silent. Yamamoto-sensei stood at the edge of the training floor, hands folded inside his sleeves, eyes unreadable. He said nothing. That silence hurt more than the blow. This was not a surprise. This was a pattern. Saburo had talent, real talent. His strikes were fast, his instincts sharp, his body strong. But talent without discipline is a liability, not an advantage. Saburo trained in bursts. He would wake up consumed by resolve. Today, I train for 6 hours. Today, I push harder than everyone. Today, I become a warrior. For 2 days, he would train until exhaustion. On the 3rd day, his body ached, his mind softened, and his discipline collapsed. He would sleep late, skip morning practice, tell himself he needed rest. 1 skipped session became 2, 2 became a week, every time. The other students noticed. Respect faded. Whispers followed him. He has potential. He just can't commit. He always quits. But the worst judgment wasn't theirs. It was his own. Every broken promise carved the same message deeper into his identity. I can't trust myself. When things get hard, I quit. That belief is poison. It doesn't just weaken effort, it destroys identity. That afternoon, the dojo emptied. The training floor lay silent. Saburo sat alone, elbows on his knees, head in his hands, staring at the wooden floorboards. For the first time, the thought crossed his mind clearly. Maybe I'm not meant for this. Footsteps approached. Saburo didn't look up. Stand, came a calm voice. He recognized it immediately. Yamamoto-sensei. Saburo rose to his feet. Do you know why you keep failing? The master asked. Saburo swallowed. I lack discipline, sensei. Yamamoto-sensei shook his head slowly. No, you have the same discipline as every man who has ever walked this earth. Saburo looked up, confused. You simply don't know how discipline is built. The master stepped closer, his voice steady, not cruel, not kind, precise. Discipline is not something you possess. It is something you construct, like a blade. Slowly, carefully, 1 strike at a time. He gestured toward the training floor. Every morning you arrive with grand plans, 6 hours, total transformation, exhaustion as proof of commitment. He paused. But you are trying to build a castle before laying a single stone. Saburo clenched his fists. I try harder than anyone, he said. That is the problem, Yamamoto replied. You try. You do not become. The master turned and walked toward the inner hall. "Come with me." The 5 principles. They entered a small room lit by soft daylight. On the wall hung a scroll, ancient and worn, ink dark against pale paper, 5 lines of calligraphy. "These are the principles my master taught me 40 years ago," Yamamoto said. "They transformed me from an undisciplined boy into a warrior." He pointed to each line. Shiko, supreme consistency. Kantan, radical simplicity. Kukan, sacred space. Kirku, the record. Shinen, unwavering conviction. "These are not ideas," the master continued. "They are practices, and you will learn them one at a time." Saburo's voice was quiet. "How long will it take?" Yamamoto-sensei smiled faintly. "As long as it takes for you to stop lying to yourself." He turned. "Meet me here tomorrow at dawn." Saburo hesitated. "How small will the training be?" "So small," the master replied, "that failure becomes impossible." Chapter 2. Shiko, Supreme Consistency. Dawn arrived cold and silent. Saburo stood at the edge of the dojo as the first light touched the horizon. Yamamoto-sensei was already there, unmoving. "Pick up your bokken," the master said. Saburo obeyed. 50 overhead cuts. Perfect form." He began. By the 30th cut, his shoulders burned. By the 45th, his arms trembled, but he reached 50. Good. 50 defensive stances. His legs shook. He completed them. 50 thrusts. Sweat dripped from his chin by the end. "How long?" Yamamoto asked. 15 minutes, Saburo guessed. 12, the master corrected. "That is your daily training." Saburo frowned. "That's all? That's all. How will 12 minutes make me a warrior?" Yamamoto's eyes met his. "How many hours did you train last week?" Saburo counted. 12. "And how many days did you train?" 5. "And how many weeks have you trained every day?" Silence. 0, the master said. "Shiko means supreme consistency. 12 minutes every day beats 6 hours once a week." He stepped closer. "Not because it builds strength, but because it builds identity." Saburo listened. "When you train hard once, you prove you can suffer. When you train every day, you prove who you are." The master's voice hardened slightly. "You will train 12 minutes every dawn, never 0. Sick or tired, strong or weak, never 0. He paused. "If you can keep this promise, everything else becomes possible." Chapter 3. The first week begins day 1. Saburo showed up. Day 2. Pain screamed in his body. He went anyway. Day 3. The danger day. Excuses whispered. Rest. Recover. Tomorrow. He remembered the rule. Never 0. He trained slower, weaker, but complete. When he finished, Yamamoto-sensei appeared. "Day 3 is where men are made," he said. "You passed." Days 4 through 7. Some days felt strong, some days felt pointless, but every day was done. By the end of the week, something shifted, not in his muscles, in his mind. The resistance softened. For the first time, Saburo wasn't chasing discipline, he was practicing it. And that changed everything. Comment 12 minutes. If you're ready to stop chasing motivation and start building discipline the samurai way. By the end of the first week, Saburo noticed something unsettling. The discipline wasn't hard anymore. That frightened him. For most of his life, effort had felt dramatic, burning muscles, loud resolve, emotional intensity. If something didn't hurt or excite him, he assumed it wasn't working. But now, 12 quiet minutes every morning. No hype, no struggle, no heroic suffering, just movement. And that was exactly why it was working. Chapter 4. Kantan, Radical Simplicity. On the 8th morning, Saburo arrived at the dojo expecting the same routine. Instead, Yamamoto-sensei was standing beside a pile of objects laid out on the floor, extra practice weapons, training weights, scrolls filled with techniques, a second set of armor. Saburo recognized them immediately. They were his. You brought all of this, the master said calmly. Why? Saburo hesitated. To improve faster. Yamamoto nodded once, then he lifted one of the scrolls and dropped it back onto the pile. You believe more effort creates progress, more tools, more techniques, more intensity. He gestured to the pile. This is why you fail. Saburo frowned. But sensei, aren't we supposed to train harder? No, Yamamoto replied. You're supposed to train cleaner. He pointed to the scroll on the wall in the inner hall. Kantan, he said. Radical simplicity. The master knelt and picked up Saburo's bokken. How many techniques do you practice? Saburo answered quickly. 12 main forms, 6 variations, 3 counters for each. Stop, Yamamoto said. He placed the bokken on the floor. How many techniques will save your life in a real fight? Saburo opened his mouth. Closed it. 1, the master said. Maybe 2. He stood. Simplicity is not weakness. It is power, concentrated. Yamamoto led Saburo outside the dojo, where the morning air was sharp and still. For the next 30 days, the master said, you will practice only 1 strike. Saburo's eyes widened. Only 1? Yes. The master demonstrated a clean, precise overhead cut. This strike, he said, nothing else. But what about defense, footwork, variations? All hidden inside this one movement, Yamamoto replied. If you master one thing fully, everything else follows. Saburo felt resistance rise. This felt too small, too slow. The master saw it. You think complexity equals progress, Yamamoto said, but complexity is how weak men hide from consistency. That cut deeper than any blade. The discipline of less. That morning, Saburo performed his usual 12 minutes. But now, it was only 1 movement, over and over. At first, it felt pointless. His mind wandered. His body wanted variety. His ego wanted proof. But the master watched closely. Again, Yamamoto said. Saburo adjusted his grip. Again, his stance shifted slightly. Again. His breath steadied. Something subtle began to happen. The movement stopped feeling mechanical. It started feeling intentional. Each repetition became quieter, cleaner, more precise. By the end of the session, Saburo was exhausted, not physically but mentally. How did 12 minutes feel? Yamamoto asked. Harder than before, Saburo admitted. The master nodded. Simplicity removes distraction. When nothing is hidden, weakness is exposed. That night, Saburo realized something disturbing. Most of his past training hadn't been about improvement. It had been about entertainment. Variety kept him engaged. Intensity made him feel productive. Complexity let him avoid confronting his flaws. Kantan removed all of that. There was nowhere to hide. Chapter 5. Why Most People Quit. Here, by day 10, Saburo understood why most men never develop discipline. Consistency is uncomfortable. Simplicity is unbearable. Without novelty, the mind rebels. Saburo's thoughts grew louder. This isn't enough. You're wasting time. Others are training harder. These thoughts had always defeated him in the past, but now he noticed something new. They were just thoughts. They passed. He kept training. That alone was revolutionary. Yamamoto explained it one morning. When your training is simple, excuses lose power, he said. You can't say you lack time. You can't say you're overwhelmed. He tapped the floor. 12 minutes, 1 movement, no negotiation. Saburo began to understand. Discipline wasn't about forcing himself to do more. It was about removing every excuse not to act. Chapter 6. Kukan, Sacred Space. On the 15th day, Yamamoto introduced the 3rd principle. Before dawn, he stopped Saburo at the entrance to the dojo. Do not enter, he said. Saburo froze. Sensei? You rush in every morning, Yamamoto continued. Your body arrives, your mind follows later. He pointed to the doorway. This space is sacred. kukan, sacred space. For the next 30 days, the master said, you will not cross this threshold casually. He demonstrated. Before stepping inside, Yamamoto paused, straightened his posture, took one slow breath, then entered. This breath, he said, separates the world from training. Saburo mimicked him. The effect was immediate. The dojo felt different. Still, focused, alive. You do not need more time, Yamamoto said. You need clearer boundaries. Saburo realized how often he trained distracted, thinking about meals, thinking about other students, thinking about results. Kukan demanded presence. 12 minutes became 12 complete minutes. No half effort, no wandering attention. That made them heavier than hours of unfocused work. The identity shift. By the end of the second week, Saburo noticed something strange. He no longer debated whether to train. He simply went. No motivation, no resistance, just action. The identity was changing. He stopped calling himself someone who tries. He became someone who shows up. Yamamoto noticed it too. Do you feel stronger? The master asked. Yes, Saburo replied. Good, Yamamoto said, but strength is not the goal. He looked at Saburo carefully. Trust is. Saburo understood immediately. For the first time in his life, he trusted himself. That trust was addictive. A warning from the master. On the 18th morning, Yamamoto stopped him again. You are improving, he said. This is where danger returns. Saburo tensed. What danger? Pride, the master replied. When discipline begins to work, men try to expand too soon. He held up one finger. You will want to add more time, more techniques, more effort. Saburo nodded. He had already felt it. Do not, Yamamoto said firmly. You are not building strength. You are building structure. He leaned closer. Break the structure, and everything collapses. Saburo bowed deeply. He understood. The second transformation. At the end of the second week, Saburo looked the same, but inside, everything was different. He no longer relied on emotion. He no longer waited for motivation. He no longer chased intensity. He showed up every day, 12 minutes, one movement, one breath, one promise kept. And for the first time, discipline wasn't something he forced. It was something he was. Comment, consistency. If you're done chasing intensity and ready to build discipline that lasts. By the third week, something dangerous began to happen. Saburo stopped feeling like he was trying. That sounds like success, but it is also where most men fail. Because when effort disappears, complacency tries to take its place. Chapter 7. Kirku. The Record. On the 21st morning, Yamamoto-sensei did something unexpected. He handed Saburo a small, plain wooden tablet and a charcoal stick. No weapons today, the master said. Sit. Saburo obeyed. This, Yamamoto said, tapping the tablet, is Kirku. The record. Saburo looked confused. A journal. A mirror, Yamamoto corrected. One that does not lie. He took the charcoal and drew a simple grid, 30 empty lines. Every day after training, you will mark one line, nothing more. That's it? Yes, Saburo frowned. Why? Yamamoto's voice sharpened. Because discipline dies in forgetfulness. He leaned forward. Tell me, Saburo, how many times have you quit in the past and told yourself it wasn't that bad? Saburo swallowed. Many. And how many times did you forget exactly when and why you quit? Saburo understood immediately. Kirku was not about motivation. It was about accountability. When effort becomes automatic, Yamamoto continued, the mind grows lazy. It starts saying, missing one day won't matter. He tapped the tablet. This record removes negotiation. Miss a day, and the empty space accuses you. No excuses, No reinterpretation, no lies. Just truth. The weight of a mark. That morning, Saburo completed his 12 minutes. Then he took the charcoal and marked one clean line. It felt insignificant until the next day and the next. By day 24, the tablet had weight. Each mark represented a promise kept. Saburo realized something unsettling. Breaking discipline now wouldn't just disappoint future Saburo, it would betray past Saburo, the one who had shown up tired, sore, bored, and uncertain. Kirku created continuity, and continuity created pressure, good pressure, the kind that builds men. Chapter 8. Why memory is the enemy of discipline. One evening, Saburo approached Yamamoto. "Sensei," he said, "why didn't you teach me this first?" The master smiled faintly. "Because you would have used it to shame yourself." Saburo nodded. He understood. Early discipline is fragile. Too much accountability too soon becomes punishment. Kirku only works once consistency is stable. That is why these principles are learned in order, Yamamoto said. Structure before pressure. Saburo thought of modern men, tracking streaks, breaking them, quitting entirely. They didn't fail because they lacked tools. They failed because they used tools before identity was built. Kirku wasn't a motivator. It was an anchor. Chapter 9. The Silent Test. On the 26th day, Yamamoto did not appear at dawn. Saburo waited. Minutes passed. No master, no instruction. The dojo was silent. For the first time in weeks, Saburo had no external witness. This was the real test. No one would know if he skipped. No one would scold him. No one would correct his form. He looked at the wooden tablet in his hands. 25 marks. Perfect. The old Saburo would have smiled and taken the morning off. The new Saburo did not smile. He stepped onto the training floor. 12 minutes, one movement, one breath. When he finished, he marked the line. Only then did Yamamoto step out of the shadows. "You passed," the master said. Saburo exhaled slowly. "That," Yamamoto continued, "is discipline." Chapter 10. Shinen, unwavering conviction. On the 28th morning, Yamamoto introduced the final principle, shinen, unwavering conviction. "This," the master said, "is what keeps discipline alive when everything else fails." He walked with Saburo outside the dojo into the cold morning air. "Conviction is not confidence," Yamamoto said. "Confidence depends on results." He stopped and faced Saburo. "Conviction depends on values." Saburo listened. "You have trained for 27 days, the master continued. Your body is stronger, your mind quieter, your discipline stable. He paused. "Now, I ask you, why do you train?" Saburo answered quickly. "To become a warrior." Yamamoto shook his head. "That is a title." Saburo hesitated. "To honor my lord." "That is duty." The master waited. Saburo searched deeper. "To become someone I can trust." Yamamoto smiled. "That is conviction." He placed a hand on Saburo's chest. When discipline is tied to outcomes, it collapses under failure. When it is tied to identity, it survives everything. Shinen meant this. You do not train because you feel like it. You do not train because you are winning. You do not train because others are watching. You train because this is who you are. The final shift. On the 30th day, Saburo stood alone in the dojo. No master, no audience, just him. He performed his 12 minutes, slowly, deliberately, fully. Then he marked the final line. 30 days. He felt no surge of pride, no celebration, just calm certainty. Yamamoto entered quietly. "You are finished," he said. Saburo looked up, confused. "Finished?" "With being undisciplined," the master replied. He gestured toward the training floor. "This practice will continue for the rest of your life." Saburo bowed deeply. He understood. Discipline was no longer something he chased, it was something he protected. The real lesson. Most people fail not because they aim too low, but because they aim too big. They try to become someone new instead of proving who they already are, one small action at a time. Saburo didn't transform because he worked harder. He transformed because he stopped negotiating. Supreme consistency, radical simplicity, sacred space, the record, unwavering conviction, not motivation, not willpower, identity. Comment, never zero if you're done lying to yourself and ready to build discipline that cannot collapse. By the 31st morning, Saburo expected something dramatic, a new technique, a longer session, a declaration that he was finally ready. Instead, Yamamoto-sensei said nothing. He simply stood at the edge of the dojo and watched. This confused Saburo more than any instruction so far. Chapter 11. The Illusion of Completion. After training, Saburo approached his master. "Sensei," he said, "what comes next?" Yamamoto looked at him for a long moment. "What do you think comes next?" he asked. Saburo hesitated. "More training, harder training, advancement." The master shook his head. "That is what undisciplined men believe," he said. "They think discipline ends with intensity." He turned and walked toward the doorway. Real discipline begins when progress becomes invisible. Saburo followed him outside. "For 30 days you trained knowing there was a finish," Yamamoto continued. "That knowledge carried you." He stopped. "Now, there is no finish." Saburo felt a chill, not from the air, but from the implication. "You will wake tomorrow," Yamamoto said, "and nothing will change. The same 12 minutes, the same movement, the same silence. And the day after, and the day after that." The master looked directly into Saburo's eyes. "Most men fail here." Chapter 12. When discipline loses its reward. The next week was the hardest yet, not because training hurt, but because nothing happened, no praise, no milestones, no visible gains. The mind hates this phase. It whispers dangerous thoughts. What's the point? You've already proven yourself. You could skip today. You deserve it. Saburo recognized the voice. It was the same one that had destroyed him in the past, but now something was different. He didn't argue with it. He didn't fight it. He trained anyway. That was the breakthrough. Discipline no longer depended on emotion, reward, or progress. It existed independently. Chapter 13. The Long Plateau. One evening, Saburo confessed his frustration. "I feel like I'm standing still," he said. "I don't feel stronger. I don't feel sharper." Yamamoto nodded. "This is the plateau," he said. "Every path has one." He picked up a stone from the ground. "If you sharpen a blade every day, eventually you stop seeing sparks. That does not mean the blade is dull." He handed the stone to Saburo. "Men who chase feeling quit here. Men who respect structure continue." Saburo understood. The plateau wasn't a problem. It was a filter. Chapter 14. Discipline without witness. One morning, a storm swept through the region. Rain flooded the paths. Wind rattled the dojo walls. Saburo woke before dawn and hesitated. No one would blame him. Even Yamamoto might understand. Then he remembered the rule: never zero. He trained alone in the storm, rain seeping through the roof, breath steady, movements deliberate. When he finished, Yamamoto emerged quietly. "I did not expect you," the master said. "That," he continued, "is why you came." Chapter 15. The Subtle Transformation. Weeks passed. Saburo noticed changes others could not see. He spoke less, he reacted slower, he listened more. Discipline had begun to leak into everything. He woke without resistance, he ate without excess, he worked without delay. This was the real transformation, not performance, Alignment. Yamamoto observed it silently. Your discipline is no longer confined to the dojo, he finally said. That means it is becoming real. Chapter 16. The Quiet Power. One afternoon, a new student challenged Saburo during sparring. Aggressive, loud, reckless. The old Saburo would have matched his energy or crumbled under it. The new Saburo did neither. He waited. One clean movement. The match ended. The dojo fell silent. Saburo felt no pride, only clarity. Yamamoto nodded once. Discipline creates calm, he said. Calm creates precision. Precision ends conflict. Chapter 17. Why most people will never have this. That evening, Yamamoto spoke plainly. Most men want results without identity, he said. They want the appearance of discipline without the boredom. He looked at Saburo. You accepted boredom. You accepted repetition. You accepted silence. That is why discipline accepted you. Saburo bowed deeply. He understood now. Discipline wasn't built by force. It was built by patience. Chapter 18. The Danger of Expansion. On the 55th day, Saburo felt ready to add more. Longer sessions, more techniques, greater challenge. Yamamoto noticed immediately. Do not expand yet, he warned. But I feel capable, Saburo said. That is exactly why you must wait, the master replied. He explained, expansion before stability destroys structure. Most men grow wide before they grow deep. He tapped Saburo's chest. You are still growing roots. Chapter 19. The Man You Become. By the end of the second month, Saburo no longer measured time. Training simply existed, like breathing, like walking, like thought. One morning, Yamamoto addressed him differently. Saburo, he said, you no longer train to become disciplined. You train because discipline is how you live. The words settled deeply. This was the moment Saburo realized the truth. He would never quit again. Not because quitting was impossible, but because quitting no longer made sense. The lesson of Part 4. Most people chase change. Few endure stillness. Discipline is forged not in effort, but in continuation, when nothing is happening, when no one is watching, when progress is silent. That is where discipline either dies or becomes permanent. Saburo chose permanence, and because of that choice, everything else in his life began to align. Comment, structure, if you're ready to keep going, even when progress is invisible. By the third month, discipline no longer felt like something Saburo did. It felt like something that carried him. That realization changed everything. Chapter 20. When discipline stops being effort. Saburo no longer woke up questioning whether he would train. The question simply never appeared. His body rose before his mind could argue. His feet carried him to the dojo without negotiation. The 12 minutes passed the way breathing passes, quietly, automatically, without resistance. This was the state Yamamoto had been guiding him toward all along. Effortless consistency, not ease, but inevitability. Most people believe discipline should feel hard forever. They think struggle is proof of seriousness, but true discipline, once rooted, becomes silent, invisible, unremarkable, and, because of that, unbreakable. Chapter 21. The End of Motivation. One morning, Saburo asked a dangerous question. Sensei, he said, what if one day I don't feel like training at all? Yamamoto didn't answer immediately. He watched Saburo finish his practice. Then he said, that day has already come. Saburo frowned. You have trained many mornings without desire, Yamamoto continued. You simply stopped asking permission from your feelings. He stepped closer. Motivation is for beginners. Identity is for warriors. That sentence struck deeper than any instruction so far. Saburo realized something unsettling. If motivation disappeared tomorrow, nothing would change. That was freedom. Chapter 22. Discipline reveals the self. As discipline stabilized, Saburo noticed something else emerge. Clarity. Without constant inner negotiation, his mind became quieter. Decisions sharpened. Doubt weakened. He wasted less energy arguing with himself. He saw how much of his old exhaustion came not from effort, but from resistance, from saying yes and no at the same time, from wanting change without accepting process. Discipline removed contradiction, and in that silence, Saburo began to see himself clearly. His strengths, his weaknesses, his patterns, no excuses, no stories, just truth. Chapter 23. The temptation of comfort. Discipline attracts comfort like light attracts insects. As Saburo improved, others noticed. Respect returned. Praise followed. Responsibility increased. This was another test. Comfort whispers softly, "You've earned rest. You're different now. You can relax," Yamamoto warned him. "Comfort is not the enemy," he said. "Indulgence is," he explained. "Discipline does not require suffering, but it does require restraint." Saburo understood. He didn't need to live harshly. He needed to live deliberately. Chapter 24. The day discipline was tested. One morning, Saburo woke with fever. His body ached, his head pounded. Every instinct told him to stay in bed. This was not laziness. This was genuine weakness. He remembered the rule, never zero. But Yamamoto had also taught wisdom, not rigidity. Saburo stood. He dressed. He walked to the dojo, and he trained, not at full strength, not with force, but with presence. Slow movements, controlled breath, gentle precision. 12 minutes. That was enough. When Yamamoto saw him later, he nodded once. "Discipline adapts," he said. "It does not break." Chapter 25. The quiet confidence. By now, Saburo no longer needed affirmation. He walked differently. He spoke with restraint. He listened fully. Confidence had replaced insecurity, not the loud kind, but the grounded kind, the kind that does not prove itself, the kind that endures pressure without rising to it. Others sensed it. Challenges softened. Conflicts shortened. Resistance dissolved faster. Discipline had reshaped his presence. Chapter 26. Why this practice changes everything. One evening, Yamamoto spoke plainly. "This practice works," he said, "because it changes who you believe you are." He continued, "Most men believe they are inconsistent, weak, unreliable." He pointed to Saburo. "You no longer believe that." That belief was the true transformation, not skill, not endurance, identity. Chapter 27. The transfer of discipline. Saburo noticed discipline spreading into areas he never touched consciously. He began tasks immediately instead of delaying. He finished what he started. He spoke truthfully without overthinking. The 12 minutes had rewired everything. This was the hidden power of the method. Discipline built in one place strengthens all others. Chapter 28. The Master's Final Warning. Near the end of the 3rd month, Yamamoto gave his final caution. "Never boast about discipline," he said. "Never test it publicly." Saburo listened carefully. "Discipline is quiet," the master continued. "Once you turn it into an identity you perform, it begins to rot." He looked directly at Saburo. "Protect it by practicing, not announcing." Saburo bowed deeply. He understood. Chapter 29. The man who no longer quits. One morning, Saburo realized something profound. He could not remember the last time he quit anything. Not training, not effort, not discomfort. Quitting had lost its logic, not because it was forbidden, but because it no longer matched who he was. Chapter 30. What most people miss. Most people want transformation. Few are willing to become boring, but discipline is boring, repetitive, quiet, uncelebrated, and that is why it works. Saburo did not become extraordinary by chasing greatness. He became unbreakable by refusing inconsistency. The lesson of Part 5. Discipline is not built by force. It is built by repetition without negotiation. When you stop asking if you will act and simply act, life begins to align around you, not because the world changes, but because you do. Comment: identity, if you're ready to stop relying on motivation and start living as the person who never quits. By the 4th month, there was nothing left to add, and that was the final lesson. Chapter 31. When nothing is missing. Saburo woke before dawn, as he always did. He did not feel driven. He did not feel inspired. He did not feel proud. He simply stood, dressed, and walked to the dojo. 12 minutes, one movement, one breath. When he finished, he remained standing in silence. For the first time, he felt complete. Not finished. Complete. There is a difference. Finished implies an end. Complete implies alignment. Saburo was no longer building discipline. He was living inside it. Chapter 32. The disappearance of resistance. Resistance had vanished so gradually that Saburo barely noticed when it was gone. No inner debate, no friction, no delay. What once required effort now required presence. This was the state Yamamoto had intended from the beginning. A life without negotiation. Most exhaustion, Saburo realized, does not come from work. It comes from arguing with yourself about whether to do the work. That argument was over. Chapter 33. Why this works when everything else fails. Yamamoto explained it simply. Men fail because they demand change before identity, he said. This method reverses the order. First, you show up. Then, you trust yourself. Then, you become disciplined, not the other way around. Saburo nodded. He had lived the proof. Chapter 34. The day the master stepped back. One morning, Yamamoto did not appear, not to test, not to observe, not to instruct. Days passed. Weeks. Saburo continued without deviation. That was the final confirmation. Discipline no longer required guidance. It was self-sustaining. Yamamoto returned one evening and spoke only once. "You no longer need me." Saburo bowed deeply. He felt no loss, only gratitude. Chapter 35. The legacy of the practice. Years later, Saburo would teach others. He never spoke of motivation, never promised transformation, never sold intensity. He taught 12 minutes, one movement, never 0. Most laughed, some stayed. Those who stayed changed their lives. Chapter 36. The truth about discipline is not heroic. It does not feel powerful. It does not announce itself. It is quiet, and because it is quiet, it lasts. The men who change the world are not the loudest. They are the most consistent. Chapter 37. Your turn. You do not need a samurai master. You do not need perfect conditions. You do not need a 30-day transformation. You need one rule. Never 0. 12 minutes. Every day. No negotiation. If you build this, everything else follows. The final lesson. You are not undisciplined. You are just trying to build discipline the wrong way. Stop aiming high. Aim small. Aim daily. Aim forever. Because when discipline becomes who you are, nothing can take it from you. Comment: never 0 if you're ready to stop restarting and start becoming. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.